This episode is just a quick update from me to let you know about the Christmas break. So when I'll be back to the podcast, when the next podcast episode will be out, to share with you the best episodes from 2024 that I can recommend that you listen to over the Christmas break, and also just a little bit more of a general update from me. You're listening to the Tax Professional Podcast, the podcast that helps tax professionals to progress, develop, and improve their careers.
Welcome to the Tax Professionals Podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping you improve your tax career. Here's your host, Jack Bonehill.
So just a quick update from me then on the break that I'm taking from the podcast over the Christmas period. So I didn't want to leave you all in the dark. I wanted to keep you up to date and let you know what's happening so you can know when you can next expect a new podcast episode from the podcast. So the next one will be on the 20th of January after this episode, which will be with guest James Edwards, who basically got to a point of winning so much tax work that he just became way too busy and really didn't have enough time to deliver the tax work. So ended up working really long hours in the week and also on weekends. In that episode, it's all about sharing with you advice, mindset and tips to help you be able to win tax work, just like James has. The next episode after that will be on the 3rd of February, which will be a tax career success secrets episode with Sajal Gupta. And she has done really well in her career of, I suppose, building a team with a good culture in it, where people don't want to leave and people want to stay in the team and people want to continue working in it. So that's going to be a really good episode for those of you that may have heard of her before, because she's very active on LinkedIn. I think she's part of Women in Tax and some similar committees or organisations as well. So that should be a really nice episode on the 3rd of February. Then the next episode after that will be on the 17th of February, which is likely to be one to help people pass the May 2025 CTA exams. So these are all episodes that are going to be released on Mondays as usual every other week, just as they are now. It's just that I'm taking a break between now and the 20th of Jan, essentially so I can have a Christmas break and take a little bit of a break from the podcast. So over 2024, I've actually looked back earlier today at all the episodes that came out this year. And in my own mind, the episodes this year weren't as good as they were in previous years. I almost felt like the content, in terms of what I was deciding to talk about, what I decided to interview people on, wasn't as good as what it was in the past. But actually, as I was flicking through it, I didn't get that impression at all. Actually, there's quite a few good episodes that I think will be really valuable to people and those of you that listen. So these are the ones that I recommend you take and listen to over the Christmas break, or just go back and listen to now if you haven't listened to them yet from 2024. So the first one is episode 96, which is all about why Amy Rylance failed one CTA paper multiple times, but then passed and qualified. It was a really good episode to make sure that you know how to prepare properly for the CTA papers, the CTA exams, so that you reduce the chances of not being successful in the next sitting. The next episode that I think is a really good one to listen to is episode 98, which is actually one where it's just me. I was actually interviewed by someone else on my own podcast, and it was to do with how and why I moved tax law after being at my previous employer for 7 years. And so I essentially share all the ins and outs as to why I decided to make that decision and take a different role, and why I decided to take that new role. The next episode I want to recommend is TTPP 107, so episode 107. And this one was actually with two people from Pro Tax Recruitment, so Maisie and Sam from there. And it was on the most desired skills and attributes of tax professionals when it comes to accountancy firms. So like when you've got an accountancy firm as an employer, what skills and attributes do they most value in tax professionals when they're looking to hire them and, suppose promote people and everything like that. So if you want some focus in terms of, knowing the skills that you should be working on or making sure that you're good at, that's a really good episode, because it'll mean that you can spend time in valuable places and improve skills that employers, accountancy firm employers, are actually really going to appreciate. And the last one is a fairly recent one, which is where I got Ellie Theochari back on the podcast. So I interviewed Ellie about a year ago when she first became partner at Blick Rothenberg at, I think, 30 years old, 29 or 30, but at a very young age she became a tax partner, and thought it'd be good to get her back on the podcast and see how her first year went, so she could share with us what it looked like, what went well, what didn't go well, and kind of how she just approached it. So that's really good if you're interested in seeing like what being a partner in the first year looks like, and also how to make a success of it, because spoiler alert, she's done an incredible job of her first year there. Just also then a little quick update from me. So for those of you that listen to many episodes and have been around for a while now, you know that I decided to take a break from the podcast earlier in the year. It's around summertime. And the main reason I decided to take that break, which was about 1.5, 2 months from memory, was because I just felt like I got into a bit of a rut with the podcast, like kind of stuck on the hamster wheel of churning out episodes, not feeling like I was producing good content, being really busy at work, and just taking on too much work-related things overall. So I felt like I needed to take a break because I was predominantly stressed and it was just making life less enjoyable for me. So I decided to take that break. And when I came back, it was much better after that. I managed to get on top of a lot of things. I still had some work to do in terms of, I suppose, keeping on top of stress and similar, but I'm in a much better place now with that. So in terms of the podcast then, so the podcast will just continue as normal next year. I'll probably end up taking another break over the summer or something like that. But podcast episodes will be every 2 weeks as normal, and we'll just continue with it that way for the foreseeable. In terms of the training courses that I provide for tax professionals, so I've recently delivered the last Tax Advice Masterclass, which had just over 30 people enrolled overall, which was really nice to see. It's actually the session with the most enrolled people, yet the most attendees. So I was really happy with that. And the thing is about these training sessions that I do, I actually just really enjoy delivering them. So actually next year, what I want to do is do a lot more of the training sessions if I can. It always pretty much comes down to if I can get enough people to want to take the courses, because I don't want to be delivering a course to just say one person. I think really the minimum per course is going to need to be 10 just to make it viable from my perspective. So fingers crossed that enough people want to do those next year, and I can probably do at least 2 tax advice masterclasses run at different times, and also at least 2 tax research masterclasses run at different times. I'll probably be running them in May time or around May time, just after the CTA and ATT exams have been sat by people, so that it doesn't get in the way of people who are doing their exams. And I'll probably do the same thing in November as well. So just after people have sat the CTA exams and ATT exams in November, that's when I'll probably have dates around for those. So keep your eyes peeled for those. There is one scheduled currently in May next year. That is the Tax Research Masterclass, which is already open for people to enroll on if they would like to. So if you would, please head on over to thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/masterclasses, and you'll find links there for further details and also for where you can enroll onto it. So next year, I do want to make sure that the podcast episodes that I'll put out are super valuable. As I kind of mentioned briefly earlier, I felt internally like the quality had dropped with the podcast episode, which was entirely to do with me. I think that's not the case now after looking back through the episodes earlier today before I sat down to record this. But I do really want to make sure that each episode that I put out is super valuable. If you've got anything at all that you would like me to cover on the podcast, please do let me know, whether it's you potentially being a guest, whether it's a particular topic, particular type of episode, whatever it is. If you let me know about it, as long as it relates to helping tax professionals to progress, develop and improve their tax careers in some way, then it's a potential episode. And I'm not running out of ideas or short of them, but if I know what you as a listener would like to hear, then it's just going to help me to put something out there that you're going to value and you're going to benefit from, hopefully, the most. With the podcast episodes as well, so I tried a new episode layout this year, if that's the right word for it. On episode 106, I did something a little bit different. So I started off that episode by giving a story that was about five minutes long. That is completely a true story that I just decided to craft and tell in a way that was hopefully more interesting than it would have been if I didn't do it. It's because I've been working on getting better at storytelling, because I believe it's going to make listening to the podcast episodes more interesting, more enjoyable, and also help you to take more away from the episodes because it was more memorable. So that episode was actually called My Worst Client Experience and 5 Takeaways to Improve Your Tax Advice. So I started that episode by giving a story, and then I gave you the 5 takeaways afterwards. So I'm probably going to do a few more episodes like that last year, because I actually quite enjoyed doing it. And the fact that I sat down and spent that time working on that story is helped me, I think, to become better at storytelling. And as I say, hopefully making the podcast episodes more interesting and more enjoyable. But that's basically it. Just wanted to give you the quick update on the Christmas break. The episodes I recommend you can go back and listen to now if you haven't listened to them yet from this year. And also a little bit about, I suppose, me and the future now with the podcast and related. So this episode will be out on the 9th of December. That's when it'll go live. So it's going to be getting quite close to Christmas at this point. So unless I hear from you on LinkedIn or by email or anything like that, I hope you all have a great Christmas break. Manage to have the break that you need, and that for those of you that are working in personal tax, it's not too painful now and also in January. Thanks everyone.